Okay, welcome back. We're still on page 548 talking about bots. So here's a thing that you can put in. You can create a meta tag that says don't scan this particular page and optionally don't follow any of the links on this page. Basically make it completely oblivious to search engines. So that's how. So there's two ways you can do this. One is with a meta tag as shown here, and the other is with a what's called a robots text file, and it's kind of sort of the same thing. And this one can be a little bit more specific. There's an entire thing. The problem is, because I put a robots text file or a meta tag, doesn't mean that the search bot will not. You're merely telling it not to. So if I'm a bad guy and I'm searching web page hunting for vulnerabilities, for example, I'm trying to, let's say somebody came out with okay, I'll give you a real life example. I had a forum software on one of my web pages, and so this guy had a bot and ran through and found every single instances of that forum software of that particular version number because it had a vulnerability. And so in that case, the bad guy wrote the bot, and so he never even looked to see if you had a robots text file or a meta tag because he didn't follow the rules. Now, Google obviously is going to follow the rule. All right, so let's talk about why you'd ever want to do this. Well, let me show you a couple of crazy examples. So I'm going to go once again to one of my goofy websites. All right, so this is a traditional website, not that big a deal, but this piece right here, this is really not really kind of a website per se. It's really a web application, because I can go in here and run a calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a right click and go here and say view source. Okay, so I'm just going to skip through some of this stuff, right? And there's a lot of but then it's like all this programming stuff, and all this JavaScript and all these onclick and classes and do post back and all this junk. Okay? Well, think about it. What value would the robot have to scan this page? There's nothing in here. Right? I mean, there's nothing in here that anyone would ever want. So it makes sense in some cases to basically tell the robots, don't bother scanning this one page or this one section. So for example, I have a tip directory in one of my web pages that I throw things out there occasionally, and I'll leave them out there for a couple of weeks. So because it's temporary, I put a robots tag in there, basically telling it, don't bother scanning anything in this directory because quite frankly, it's not going to be there very long. So if I had not, it would scan it and say, hey, here's this cool file, and then you click on the link and it would be gone because I didn't leave it out there very long, right? Okay, that kind of makes sense. Okay, the second part of the whole system is the database. And so you can imagine the amount of data that these bots are collecting. So during this phase, they're actually going through and doing some calculations. So they're getting ready to store a bunch of data about your web pages. They're going to store information about the number of links coming into your website, the number of links going out of your website, and calculate that kind of page ranking kind of a thing on how, what the keywords are. So there's a heck of a lot of stuff. Now you can imagine these databases are huge. And so folks like Google have servers all over the place. Distributed database so that your search times are quick, because a lot of people rely on Google, and so you can't have it. So I type in Beanie Babies and hit the button and it waits 15 seconds before it to reply. I mean, Google's pretty quick. They spend a lot of money on getting this thing to be performant. Okay, I talked about the number of links coming in and going out. Later on we'll talk about a little bit more about what things you can tweak in your website. But not all referrers, the people who are linking into your website, not all of them are created equal. If Microsoft is linking to your website, oh yeah, big time. But if Cousin Bob is linking, on his Facebook page is putting a link to your website. Nah, that's not worth very much. So the link count isn't near as important as the prominence of those links. Okay, so a very huge distributed database, and of course they have to have it in multiple locations in order to get very, very fast. And so Google has thousands of servers all over the place. And the last part is the search form, and you know what we're talking about. You go here, and you can be, some people are just kind of naturally better at how you can do this, but there's a help page here that actually allow you to come in and learn exactly, how to use an and or an or when to put things in quotes, and there's an entire thing on how to perfect this part. So anyway, this is the search form. It basically has two parts. The beginning part, which you type in Beanie Babies. In fact, since I'm going to use kumquat this time. So I'm going to type in kumquat. And then the other part, of course, is what's called the search engine results page. This guy. Okay. And if you're in a business, what you want, you want to be number one on the list. Number one on the search engine results page, the SERP. How's that for a goofy acronym? So in this particular case, there's Wikipedia and a bunch of other stuff, and probably there's going to be a Kumquat Growers Association, right? Okay, cool. All right. It doesn't look like any of these are ads until maybe I get down to the bottom. In fact, I don't have any ads in here. That's kind of strange. Most of the time, you would get an advertisement that somebody paid to be at the top or at the bottom. Okay. So the search engine results page. The order of the results is very, very important to some people. I mean, they want to be at the top, but that's very expensive because to get there naturally takes an awful lot of effort and takes a lot of time. You don't get to the top in a hurry. No way. You might eventually get to the top, but it takes time. If you want to be at the top on day one, you're opening your brand new cake decorating business, and you want to be top, you're going to pay. Okay, that's the only way to get there in a hurry. So the order of results does matter. Everyone wants to be at the top of the page, and most everyone is willing to settle for on the first page. You don't want to be on page 2 or page 3. You want to be on the first page. Okay. And I mentioned this page ranking system. The page ranking system for Google is not a static thing. They tweak it over and over, and they try different things. And so, the search engine results from today might not match the search engine results for tomorrow because they kind of tweak the algorithm a little bit in the interim. And they're not under any obligation to come back and tell you they did this, right? So you may say, wow, I'm on the first page, of the search engine. Yay! So you go call grandma. Hey, grandma, my webpage is on the first page of Google. Try it. And they come back and say, well, I don't see it. Well, dang it. In the interim, it's moved to the second page. Okay. On page 549, they talk about what it is you can do to help with your search engine optimization. All right, I already mentioned that there's some things you can do, but then outside of that, you probably need to hire an expert. All right, the first one is keywords. Yes, there is a meta tag where you can add keywords, and please do throw those in. Again, most of the time you won't necessarily need to have too many keywords, because if you have like plumbing parts under an H1 tag, putting plumbing parts in the header in the meta tag under keywords is probably a waste of time. You want to put things that are not. So for example, you might say plumbing parts in an H1 tag, and InSinkerator under an H3 tag, and American Standard under an H3 tag, but nowhere does it say where you are. So maybe in the keywords you would put Copper Cove and Colleen and Temple and Harker Heights, those words that do not appear in H tags. Got it? Okay. So the idea of keywords are still valid, but there's probably no real need to duplicate the ones that are already inside titles or inside H tags. Okay. So Keywords are only marginally useful for search engines. They're not near as important as they used to be. It used to be, you could game the system, but clearly not now. Titles, yes, very, very useful for searches. Several reasons. Okay, this right here, this title, How to Eat a Kumquat, 14 Steps with Pictures. Where'd that come from? Wow. Let's look at this web page. So if I go to View Source, here's a meta tag with a description. Articles and source code examples to help you learn how to program low-level system tasks. That's where it came from. In other words, whoa, I thought I was going to get back to where I was. Here we go. In other words, this text comes from the description meta tag. Now, you don't want to have it too huge because you can tell it doesn't wrap around, right? So it's going to have like however many probably about 60 or 70 characters wide. So in addition to the title of your web page, the description typically shows up in the search page. So that's pretty cool. So the title, useful for the search. The title typically shows up here. And the title is also what shows up if you were to save this guy as a favorite, right? So whatever this guy, the text that shows up over here, that's where the title comes from. The description tag is some of this longer stuff. So I don't really know exactly how it decides what's to show here, if it shows a title or a description. I haven't figured that out, but obviously they want you to do both. Again, we talked about the heading tags. Your web page should have structure, and so the more structure, the better. And using H tags for structure is the way it goes. Linking, make sure that there's a description of where you're getting ready to go. If I'm getting ready to go to the sales section of my web page, well then by God, it ought to say sales in that description part of the A tag. Okay, not click here, but sales. Okay, we've talked about all that before. And obviously, make sure your dang links work. The bot cannot possibly scan your web page if your web page is broken. So yeah, make sure all your links work. Okay. Oh, images and multimedia, we talked about that. You're going to need the alternate text. You're going to need the captions and things of that nature. And I mentioned that it's not necessarily a bad thing if you don't have valid HTML5. Or let's say you wrote one and it's an HTML3 standard or an HTML4 standard. Is that going to mess up the bots? No, it's not going to mess up the bots at all. They're going to be able to handle XHTML, everything. Is it going to affect your page rank? I'm not exactly certain. I would intuitively, not that I have any knowledge in how Google does their top secret page ranking, but I would kind of imagine the more amateurish your web page is, the lower are you going to appear on the search results page. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you that's absolutely true, but I believe it's true. Okay. And then, of course, they talk about the value of the content. Well, yeah, if you just have a bunch of junk out there, your political musings, well, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to read that. It's got to be something useful that the customer wants. Okay, so how do I get on this search engine results page? So in 552, they talk about the steps. All right, so I have a brand new web page and no one's been there because it's only been up and live for 5 minutes. How do I get people to come to my web page? Well, the first is you go to Google. Actually, honest to God, go to Google, and there is a section in here that basically allows you to go in and tell it, I want to add a web page. Okay. So there's a thing in here that talks about advertising and settings and all the rest of the stuff. And if you keep going, it may take you a while to get there, but you'll finally end up to the point where you can submit your web page to be included in their search engine. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.